guys, you can stop doing the flexible sign. But thank you so very much for all of your hard work during this time, because it's a weird time. So, if you remember, 2 weeks ago was the last time I was up here, and we were learning about one individual in particular. If you know who it is and you know their name, say it on the count of three. 1, 2, 3. Moses. Everyone say Moses. 1, 2, 3. Moses. All right, we're going to do a little bit of true and false. We're going to do a little bit of true and false. This is true, that's false. I'm going to read some statements. You give me true or false. Are you ready? Here we go. True or false? Thumbs up, thumb sideways so I know that you're ready to go. Thumb sideways, just so I know that you're ready. You're almost ready. There we go. Almost ready. There we go. Okay, now we're ready. Here we go. Moses was placed in a basket as a baby. 3, 2, 1, thumbs. Thumbs, thumbs, thumbs. The answer is true. He was placed in a basket as a baby to avoid being killed by the Egyptians. All right, thumb sideways again. Reset. When he grew up, Moses stole a lot of money from the Egyptians. Thumbs up or thumbs down? 3, 2, 1. Show me what you think. Ooh, very nice. Most people said thumbs down. It's not that he stole a lot of money. He killed a guy. Right? He actually killed an Egyptian. All right, thumbs sideways, reset. Next one we have, God approached Moses through a dream. Thumbs up, thumbs down if you think that's correct. True or false? God approached Moses through a dream. Ooh, no, we got thumbs down. All right, thank you. That is correct. It was from actually a burning bush instead. Here's the next one. Give me a thumb sideways to reset. This one is true or false? God sent plagues through Moses on the Egyptians. Thumbs up if it was true, thumbs down if it was not. 3, 2, 1, thumbs. The question is that God sent plagues on the Egyptian people through Moses. Thumbs up, thumbs down. That is true. He actually sent 10 of them. 10. I don't know if anyone can remember all the plagues, but there was 10 plagues that are there. Here's the last one. This is right kind of that brought us up to this point. But Moses led the people to walk on the Red Sea to make it to the other side. Thumbs down, thumbs up, thumbs down if that was true or false. People are like, oh, I don't remember that one. The answer is false. He actually parted the Red Sea so that they could walk through. All right, so you are almost caught up with kind of where we were from last week, but I wanted to kind of go back, and this is kind of the title I've given for this like lesson we're going through today is I Can Relate. Because a lot of people are like, that's an Old Testament guy. I don't remember that guy. Who cares? But there are lots of ways that we connect and relate to Moses. So I kind of had you think about if you were to sit down and have an interview with God, what that would be like and how you'd kind of put yourself out there for him. Here are the things that were on Moses' resume. He was a murderer, a runaway, a refugee, had anger management problems, talked to plants, tamed snakes, had a speech problem, and married an unbeliever. And when you think about those things, like, oh, that's awful. But here are his highlights. He wrote the first 5 books of the Bible. Do you remember what they are? Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, right? First 5, written by Moses. He led millions of slaves to freedom. He brought about diseases and plagues and split a large body of water. Hopefully you can guess, if you haven't by now, we're talking about Moses. So I asked you to think about some things, and it turns out not a whole lot of us knew a lot about Moses, which is fine. That's why we're doing lessons like this. But as a review, all the kids around him were being killed. He was put in a basket, and the Pharaoh's daughter, that's the princess of Egypt, found him and actually gave him back to his mother to raise as her own. Kind of crazy. I asked you to think about if you've ever felt out of place, because surely Moses did, right? He was raised amongst the Egyptians, even though he was an Israelite. Yeah, we got that. That was the scripture, Exodus 2, 6 through 10. God provides comfort and a place for you. Hold on, I'm still moving on. A lot of catch up here, sorry. Moses growing up, wouldn't let him play any Egyptian games like Rudolph, moving on. Grew up, became a man, went and killed somebody because he was picking on an Israelite. Hold please as we do all this catch up. Moses ran away. He went to the land of Midian, ended up marrying the priest's daughter, and then saw the burning bush like Scott was explaining. I asked you to think about if there's ever time you've ever heard God's voice and what you did in response to it. And if you haven't, to ask God for that moment. God's calling you to something. Are you listening? Can everyone do this for me really quick? On the count of 3, say this phrase out loud. Just because I know last time we were together, I asked God We all ask God to do this, but it's still one of those good affirmation, like God has a plan for me kind of things, right? And we're going to say, God, here I am. What do you want me to do? Ready? On the count of three. 1, 2, 3. God, here I am. What do you want me to do? All right, cool. So Moses was on training. We were kind of explaining how God told Moses to pick up the rod. It turned into a snake, right? And another part, he put his hand inside of his robe, brought it back, and it was like leprosy. Like his hand was all white and clammy and nasty and things. He also had a fear. His fear was speaking. He just didn't like speaking in front, so his brother Aaron was going to be the spokesperson for him. Okay. God actually gave him that. He kind of had one of those, fine, Moses, and gave him exactly what he needed. So Moses goes to Egypt, frees the people. Pharaoh refuses. Is anyone surprised by this? That Pharaoh's like, no, you can't have my labor force to build my kingdom? No. God sends plagues. Think about that for a second. Can you remember all of them? We had fiery hail, locusts, the blood, water turned to blood, darkness, the firstborn dying, right? Raise your hand as a reminder, who's the firstborn in the room? Who's the firstborn? Yep. Yeah, imagine firstborn, bye-bye to all of you. That would be it. You would just be gone. All right, so here's the other ones. We had boils on skin, locusts, wild animals destroy everything, lice. Yeah. I had to get rid of fleas last week in my house for my dogs. Yuck. I can't imagine that then being like in my hair. No, not good. Frogs, that was another one. All right. We kind of finished with, have you ever done something hard? And the hard thing that I had you guys think about was, I don't know, splitting the Red Sea. And I went back and did a fact check, by the way, to kind of like do a little bit more learning about this. We're assuming that the passage might have been, a couple of miles, which might have taken half an hour to an hour to maybe hours for people to cross. Just kind of crazy. I told you that they had found a piece of a chariot in the Red Sea, and I did more digging and found that there is actually murals made by other countries, other cultures and countries that have this depiction. So just kind of, if someone is going to tell you, well, that didn't actually happen, the Red Sea didn't actually get split. No, there's archaeological evidence. It's pretty stinking awesome. So this is where we are. I know it took a little bit of time to kind of get caught up to this point, but normally you get past something like this and you're like, this is going to be great. Who remembers where Moses was leading them to? Raise your hand if you think you can remember the phrase of the name of the place that Moses was leading them to. Go ahead, what do you think? The Promised Land. The Promised Land was where he was leading them to. Anyone remember what were the two foods that Moses used to describe the Promised Land? Anyone remember from like their kids ministry kind of stuff from before? What were the two words? How about this? I'll prime it for you. If you know the words, fill in the blank. A land flowing with... there it is, milk and honey. That was the land that Moses was explaining. Now, imagine, think for a second. Raise your hand if you've ever been to an amusement park. All right, that's almost all of us. Cool, put your hand back down. Raise your hand if you have been to the happiest place on earth. And you know what I'm talking about. All right, that's not as many of us, and that's okay. For those of you, put your hands back down. For those of you who are trying to figure out what we're talking about Disneyland or Disney World. Now, I want you to imagine for a second. If you've never been, then this is really cool because you've never been there. But imagine getting up to the doors of Disneyland, right? You're like, and for us, you'd have to take a plane or a train to get there. Imagine how long you'd have to be sitting there. Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? And you finally get to the gates of getting into Disneyland. And when you get there, your like little sibling or whoever it was that's by there says, oh, look at that, and decide to take the entire group on a long detour before getting actually into Disneyland. Raise your hand if you'd be up for a trip like that. Oh, that'd be no one. Okay, I'm just checking. So we don't like making a long trip to a promised place and then not actually getting to go in. But that's what happened with the Israelites. That's all what today is about, is this trip. Now, I kind of finished right around here. Advice, God gives you the strength, give God the glory. But in order to make it into the promised land, it was hard. We pick up in the wilderness on the way to the promised land. Moses says, let's go, and a lot of people chicken out. They're like, I don't know. Who remembers the story of the really large grapes on the stick? Anyone remember that? No? So there's 12 tribes, 12 general tribes in the Israelites. and they sent scouts into this promised land. It's like being able to get the sneak peek into Disneyland. And imagine people going into Disneyland, coming back and going, there's some scary rides in there. But it's Disneyland, right? Imagine, for those of you who've been to an amusement park, that you go in there, but they're like, oh, no. But there are these like carnival rides that are really freaky looking. You want to go in there. You'd be like, yeah, but I made this whole trip. Of course I'm going in, right? God actually had to take them through the wilderness to get rid of the weak people who were freaked out. And there's lots of ways that this happened. So we're going to only go through a couple highlights here. And I wanted to bring up one in particular that was actually a battle. So there is this battle that happened because they decided to go the long way, they actually had to go and fight people in order to get possession. And they're walking around through the wilderness and whatever during this process. And here's one. It says in Exodus 17, 10 through 12, Joshua fought the Amalekites, that's like Moses' like right-hand man, as Moses had ordered, and Moses, Aaron, and Hur went to the top of the hill. As long as Moses held up his hands, everyone hold your hands up for me, like this, and keep them up there until I finish reading. As long as Moses held up his hands, the Israelites were winning. But whenever he lowered his hands, the Amalekites were winning. When Moses' hands grew tired, they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat on it. Aaron and Hur held his hands up, one on one side, one on the other, so his hands remained steady until sunset. All right, but don't put your hands down. Keep them up. Question. And this is like where it comes to I can relate. Do you feel like you need to be strong for someone else? That you are holding someone else up. Because the Israelites weren't winning. I see people like going, I can't do it anymore. You can put your hands back down. And like, oh my gosh, my shoulders. But now I want you to think about it. Give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. You don't have to like make it really big, but think about it. Do you feel like on a regular basis you have to be strong for somebody else? What do you think? Some people are like, yeah, a little bit. Some people are like, no, not so much. I'm kind of my own person. Write down or think about what does that feel like? You know, we just put two of our youth on the spot and said, you have to be an uncle now. That's a little bit of pressure, right? That's a little bit of I need to be an outstanding person so that other people who are looking up to me know kind of what that looks like, right? That's a little hard. Again, when Moses' hands grew tired, they took a stone and put it under him and he sat on it, right? So this is just an example of how God will give you that support and give you that strength, even if it comes through other people. Here's more complaining. I have to like read some highlights here. There were like plagues that you and I know of, but then there are other plagues in the wilderness. Like at different times, there were snakes that went through the tribe and bit people, and only until the Israelites looked at this little staff thing that had a bronze snake on it were they healed. There was one time, I kid you not, go look in Scripture, I kid you not. There was one time that there was an earthquake, and the ground opened up, people fell in, and the ground closed. And they were gone. I kid you not. Go look at it. It's in the Bible. It's crazy. But this is how God had to figure out who was the real deal. You ever met someone like that at school? Where they were like, oh, lots of big talk. Nod your head if you're like, oh, I know that person. There are lots of talk, but they weren't actually the real deal. They didn't end up being that leader you wanted to be like. Moses had to figure out who those people were and who got to go into the promised land. So there were lots of things. Who remembers the story of manna falling from heaven? Raise your hand if you remember that. No? Okay. Think about, we had some rain this week, right? Imagine instead of raining, it was raining breadcrumbs. That was manna. I kid you not. Go look in the Bible. It happened. God provided for the Israelites. Now, how many days would you be okay with eating just bread? Raise your hand if you'd be okay with eating bread for a day. Raise your hand if you'd be okay eating bread for 2 days, for 3 days, for 4 days, for 40 years. Raise your hand if you're still in. No? Claire's like, I could eat bread forever. Okay. But it was a lot. So the Israelites got complaining. And they're like, we don't want bread, we want some meat. Everyone say meat. Oh, like you mean it. Like it's like a barbecue or a steak. I want some meat. Everyone say meat on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Meat. So God sent them quail. This is gross. But has you ever been to that party where there's that one guy who's like eating all the food and like shoving it in their face? And thank you. Yeah, someone's like, oh, I'm that guy. But in this scripture, go and read it for yourselves. They ate so much quail That it came out their nose. And, yeah, and came out like all their, and they were puking it up and like pooping it out everywhere. It was gross. It was really gross. These were the Israelites. Don't you want to lead those people? Oh, this is Moses, had to deal with these people. In Exodus 20, verse 11, they didn't have water, and they complained, why don't we have water? Couldn't we just live back in Egypt? Moses tapped a rock and water came out. Who would like that as a party trick? You know, just like a nice little thing. Oh, you need some water? Water. You know, just, anyways. By the way, you can read in Deuteronomy, right, one of the first 5 books of the Bible, that their shoes didn't wear out. Raise your hand if you're wearing the same pair of shoes you've been wearing for the last 10 years. No? Okay, just checking. That's what happened in the wilderness, right? Moses was leading them. God was providing. Even Moses' wife, right? There were things that they were complaining about. Moses, remember, didn't get married to an Israelite. I don't mean to be like this, but one day you might go and marry a spouse, right? Someday. And if that person maybe didn't have all the same qualities that your family or your parents agree with, they might say some things about you, right? They might complain a little bit. I need to read it just for a second. This is in Numbers 12, 1 through 5. Specifically, Moses and Aaron, that's his brother, and Miriam, his sister, the one who saved him, go to God and complain about Moses. And God puts leprosy on Miriam. Now, raise your hand if you know of or know someone who has had leprosy. Anyone know about leprosy? Okay. I want you to imagine for a second, you guys have acne, right? Some of you who are middle schoolers have acne. But I want you to imagine that instead of acne, it's like white, scaly stuff all over, not only your face, but on your hands, all over your body. So much so that if you put your hand accidentally on an oven, you wouldn't feel it. All right? So God, bam, strikes Miriam with leprosy because they're complaining about Moses' wife, right? And then Moses' response was to get on all fours and say, God, forgive her. What a way to lead, leading from your knees. I'm just super impressed by that. But we're going to move on. This is kind of the scene. This is the depiction. We got poor Mary here. She's got leprosy all over, and Moses being the intermediate, saying, heal her. She didn't know what she was doing. You know, give her back her health. And God does. See, Moses led not in fear of the people. He led in fear of his God. And I feel like a lot of the time when we're in school, we can be like that. We're like kind of worried what people think about us, you know, worried about like that, instead of being concerned about what God thinks about you. God calls you his children. He calls you blessed. He has a plan for you. For you, and 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 you. I think I made eye contact with everyone. He's got a plan for you. His word says that. Has there ever been a time when you were people-pleasing to succeed? If you want to be really honest, you'll raise your hand or just kind of raise like this. I have been like this. Has there ever been a time when you were people-pleasing in order to succeed? And if you're writing down or thinking about it, how did that feel? And then what was it like to feel like you were going back to normal? Everyone give me kind of that reaction. Right? Just acting and pretending a certain way. I don't mean to be like this. But some of you might have that special someone who you're acting a certain way because you want to get their attention. And it might be at a certain point that you get out of that relationship and it's just like, I can go back to hanging with my friends, going back to a normal, right? God's truth is that he's the one that gives you success. It's not that other person. Honestly, if we boil it down to it, it's not because of Taylor. It's not because of Jeremy. It's not because of other people. God is the source of your success. Nod your head if you see what I'm getting at. All right, God is the source. Jeremy started the whole lesson and kind of this meeting today with thinking about what are some blessings that you've seen. Because you know where those blessings came from? Everyone say who came from on a count of three. 1, 2, 3. That'd be God. Yes. Thank you. God is the reason you get success. And I think Moses' best quality in all of this is knowing who to please. Because lots of people please other people. Raise your hand if you can agree with me that people let you down. Yeah, that'd be almost everyone has their hands raised. People let you down. God won't. God never lets you down. He is the source of your success. Now, here is a not-so-great moment for the Israelites that I got to read. And if you remember, then you'll be like, oh, yeah. Moses approached the camp and saw the calf and the dancing. So Moses would have powwows with God on a mountain, just the two of them, talking. No, just talking to God on a regular basis. I'm sorry, that's way cool to me. And Moses saw a golden calf. It turns out that Aaron had taken all the jewelry, all the earrings, and melted it into a golden calf. And then made it, and all the people were worshiping this golden calf. Kind of crazy. And then Moses, with his anger burn, he threw the tablets on the stand. That was the 10 Commandments. Right, breaking them in pieces, and at the foot of the mountain, he took the calf and the people had made and burned it in the fire, and he ground it in powder and scattered it on the water and made the Israelites drink it. Everyone say, ew. Go ahead, say ew. Go ahead. Come on, stretch your ew muscle. 1, 2, 3, ew. Yeah. He burnt it, ground it, threw it in water, made them drink it. How does that taste? Ugh. Like, this was 40 years of them going through the desert. This is the kind of trek they had to do, right? This is Moses being all ticked off, throwing the 10 Commandments on the ground and breaking them up, right? There's one more thing that we kind of learned about Moses in all of this. Remember I mentioned that he had an anger management problem, right? Some of you, and I got to be honest, sometimes I deal with anger. That's the most recent thing that I've been, and it's not like it's just I get annoyed, and the annoyance kind of builds up. Raise your hand if you're like me. You get the annoyance, and it just kind of builds up after a while. Then all of a sudden, you just like blow up on somebody. Right? Raise your hand if you've blown up. You kind of, okay, oh my gosh, thank you. That's like most of you. Like, it just gets built up, and you just kind of explode on it. Well, Moses exploded on the Israelites. He was mad. Because once before this, he had brought water. Remember I did and water came out? A second time, they're complaining. I get it. If you've had 30, 40 years of someone complaining, you'd probably get tired of it too. But it says, he and Aaron gathered the assembly together in front of the rock, and Moses said, listen, you rebels, must we bring you water out of this rock? Then Moses raised his arm and struck the rod twice with his staff. Water gushed out, and the community and their livestock drank. But the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, because you did not trust me enough and honor me in the holy site, you did not bring this community into the land I give them. So Moses wasn't able to actually finish, which is kind of crazy. He wasn't able to go into the promised land. Here's my last thought for you. Do you have a flaw? If not, ask your mom or dad, right? God, please help me with. But do you have a flaw? Because if you have that flaw, it might keep you out of a promise. God's truth, only Jesus is perfect. You are a work in progress. Everyone say, I'm a work in progress. I'm a work in progress. There are consequences for sin, but God forgives you. So our takeaways from Moses. Moses wasn't perfect. He had lots of flaws. Moses was obedient. He was righteous, and he had faith in God. We can relate to Moses, and God will use you to deliver those around you. Thanks for hanging in with me for 2 weeks where we got to learn about Moses. He's someone that is like a pinnacle. One of the main topics and concepts that even Jewish people talk about today was the influence of Moses. So thank you so much. I'm going to trade this off to Jeremy. Looks like he's coming up to chat for a bit. I got it, of course. Unbutton myself. Hold, please.
Everybody give Taylor a round of applause. I can't stress how important, and I get the joy of sitting back there, and guys, I love you guys to death, but I don't know what's going on in your minds while people are talking. I really don't. I pray that things are going the way they're supposed to, but I know that if my mind can go in a million places, yours can as too. And you're like, why are we learning about Moses? We're learning about Moses because it's important, and we can relate to it and relate it to our lives. All these things here. So as you guys leave this week, put this stuff into practice. Remember, he wasn't perfect, so you don't have to be perfect, but we should be striving to be our best. Thank you, and have a blessed week. We love you guys. Just sit.